All right, we're back with segment 2, revisiting parts from chapter 1 still. At least these look kind of familiar. And maybe not that one, not that one, not that one. All right, so the first couple we'll go through. And we've been doing the standard closed profile sketches, no nested drawings, no contours and regions, not getting into any of that geometry. So let's stay with, this time I'm going to do a Control N, which will bring up our new SolidWorks document if you like the hotkeys. So millimeters will be in metric, and we defaulted to millimeters, grams, and seconds on this template. So if you're picking units, going through, we can come down to the lower right, inch, pounds, and seconds, millimeters, grams, and seconds. All right, so we don't always have to go to the top or to the front plane. We can go to the top plane. And let's see, I want to go with a center rectangle. And because of the way this geometry is laid out, I can use the contours and regions. Went 50 on the height, 100 on the width. I can use contours and regions to generate the majority of this sketch. All right, so advantage here is that I don't necessarily have to trim everything. It's going to make for more picking. So I guess in one respect, that would be a consideration, is how much geometry we really need to create here and how much we need to clean it up to help us with the build. All right, so I'm going to set up symmetry. I did not do a mirror on these items, so wall thickness is 10 all the way around. So I can select, Control Select, and Control Select. All right, so that center line is giving me an axis of symmetry. And when I make the endpoints symmetric, it's going to pull those in. I can also go to the lines, select, Control Select, and it doesn't really matter what order. So when I make the line symmetric, those are going to pull in as well. All right, so we'll add a few more dimensions. And this is going to be my process through a lot of models that we build. Let's see, that one was 40, and because of the symmetry, it's going to come over. We build however it's convenient, what makes sense, and we detail to manufacturing. And hopefully somewhere in that process, we encounter all of the potential errors or issues as we go through through each of the modules. All right, so this is one of those cases where I pick the line and a midpoint. I can make those coincident. That is also going to add symmetry. So depth-wise is 25 millimeters. And then as far as my dimension scheme, my metric defaulted to ISO, and I'm reasonably happy with ISO, so not anxious to change it. So this is pretty much my top-down view, all kinds of geometry, even some extra geometry, and we're going to pick up those contours and regions to build this part. All right, so when I go to extrude this, the base is going to be, all right, goes all the way around. All right, if I select, it's going to be thin feature. So let's deselect, make sure the thin feature gets turned off. All right, so contour is the line, it's finding the connected items, not a best choice. All right, so all of those little lines, I'm going to have to fill in those boxes. So that's kind of a nuisance, but it gets it there. And let's see, the height was 15. And that gets our base shape. Okay. Now then this next piece, we're only going to do the outside. So highlighting the sketch, going right back into the boss extrude, we have the outside shape, and we'll rotate over holding down the middle mouse button and moving the mouse so that it rotates. Let's me a little bit further. And I think I missed a couple pieces if that worked on that side. Alright, so that built the inside shape. Yeah, I guess that works. And I was looking to overlap both, but let's go ahead with the 30. Alright, so if I go back and look and double check what I picked, I missed these two. Well, if I were to deselect those two regions, then it still builds correctly because the second set added them back in. Alright, so there's different combinations and ways to approach these problems. Alright, and then one more with the contour and region. This is going to be a cut extrude. And we usually jump over the from and to. So direction 1, make sure it's going the right way. The sketch plane is going to shift from to surface, face, or plane. So I'm picking this sketch up, I'm shifting it up, and then I'm going to have it go through all. And then my selected contour, again, middle mouse button, is just the little box in the center, and that gives me the cutout. Alright, so this was one that I would say work towards if you're just starting out. Review if you are into the software a little ways. Alright, so let's go ahead and save this. Alright, so contours and regions are handy, but they can get complex. Initially, we want to keep these fairly simple. Alright, 4-8. Let's see, 10. That's through the step. Material is 10 millimeter, 1020 steel. Alright, so the issue here is if this is a sheet metal piece that is going to be bent, then we're not going to have square corners. We're going to have radiuses in there. So let's stay with the thin feature, and we'll treat it as such, but then we'll also take a look at what could potentially happen with the bend. 10 millimeters is pretty thick also. It's going to take a lot of force to bend that. So, and in 1020 steel, 10 millimeter, I think we're going to end up probably machining that anyway. So just by its definition, 10 millimeter thickness, but no, it's going to start off as billet. All right, so front plane. Set this up. Get the legs drawn. All right, so we're 50 on the bottom, 40 on the top, except the 40 on the top does not include the 10 millimeter thickness. And then the overall height, we're 10 millimeters. Okay, 40 millimeters to the base. So since we're on that inside dimension, all right, so that gets us fully defined. Features, extrude, and our width is 40 millimeters. And let's go mid-plane, just so that we can use that. One direction, we'll reverse the direction. It's already set to 10 millimeters. And then prior to the sheet metal module, thin feature was kind of the sheet metal reference. If we autofill it, we need to at least put the material thickness in there. So it would look something like that, which that is a little weird. So we're going to turn the autofillet corners off, leave the square steps, and then we need to double check our numbers. So 50 millimeters, 40 millimeters. We called that one 30 millimeters, but the top edge then was listed at 40 millimeters. So that gives me correct geometry. All right, so just jumping into the next sketch. Alright, so my rectangle type went back to center, and I want to cycle through, so I'm going to hit the A button on the keyboard until I get back to my corner rectangle. And then we can go select midpoint, select the edge, midpoint, depth from the step, and again, because of the projection, as long as I can project that edge into my current sketch, this is a valid edge. This is also a valid edge. These are valid edges. Right, this is a valid edge. All right, so pick edges that make sense to you, but you know, keep in mind the whole projection thing goes a long way. All right, so I just happened to grab this on the side. I could have drawn it from the top and extrude cut down, but technique will be basically the same. So extrude cut. I'm going to offset this from surface, and first of all, it needs a surface to offset from, and we're going 15 millimeters. And the geometry looks okay. So if I were to reverse the offset, it goes all the way through. Translating the surface is usually more about curvature, and flipping the side to cut makes everything else go away. So we'd be left with just a little angle there. All right, so that gives me one step. Go with the sketch, and this time I'll pick up the corner rectangle because that's what I use most. And we'll go select midpoint, control select the edge, make it the midpoint, set our dimension for 15 deep. And then if our design intent is to keep this with the other notch, again with the projection I can pick up top, but still make those collinear. And if it doesn't like it, it'll let me know. Not up to, let's stay with through all, that's fine. P4-8. Alright, so let's bring over the next two. The key clip has some interesting shape. Probably will stay with the C shape. Get the dimensions, 1.5, add the leg on. Question is, do I want to cut through or add the leg back in? And then the notch, still looking at it with the item manufacturer, square corners, and probably not enough depth to get a T-slot cutter in there, and it's pretty big for a T-slot cutter. So, you know, kind of looking at it from the where would I put radiuses, or what would I do to increase the manufacturability. All right, so new, we're going to go with part inch, front plane. Let's add that piece on. And so one of the things that we can do is stay with the corner rectangle. Go 1.5 by 1.5. And then we have this thing that on the right mouse button that will switch us to construction geometry, or come over to the property manager and switch to for construction. And apparently I didn't hit either one of those. There we go. So we get the dashed line. That makes it an open profile. We're ready for thin feature or potentially offset geometry. So I'm having fun with the thin features. We're going to go ahead and extrude. And our thickness was 1/2 inch all around. And we're going to flip the direction. Oh, and that was pretty thin, so let's see, our overall was 2.5 inches, so I got that. There we go, that was why I was looking thin. Reverse my numbers. So depth of the extrusion and thickness of the thin feature. All right, so next box. Let's go ahead with a center line. And we'll take a look at mirror. So over, want to make sure that this is closed off, up, back, and then if I window pick from right to left, oops, still in line, window pick from right to left, that's going to be everything included. Left to right is just what is inside. All right, so we mirror those entities. We have 0.25 on the step. Let's see, 0.75 from the outside. And 0.5 thickness, and then the width was, oh, we had 0.5 and 0.75, so I got those reversed. 0.5 and 0.75. Okay, and then that gets extrude cut up to next. Let's go to the bottom, open up our sketch. Kind of lost my perspective. So the little notch out on the other corner is going to be over here. So we'll start at the outside. And that was 1 inch. On the length. And 0.5 for the depth. We could have just as easily gone from here to here and ended up with the other 2 inches. All right, so since I have my show the make driving window turned off, then it's automatically going to put that second dimension into a driven state. So when I see this light gray, as opposed to the darker extension lines, that's telling me that that is a driven dimension. If I wanted to reverse those, we can go back over to other, make that dimension driven, and then it goes to gray, and then swap it so that the first dimension now has priority. All right, so if I try to click on this one, it's telling me that it's a driven dimension, and this one will let me actually change it. All right, so features, extrude. Let's go back into the shaded with edges. And after that, I still managed to get it on the wrong corner, so we'll make that correction here in a second. We're going to reverse the direction. And let's see, and up to next. Can't really terminate. So up to vertex, that would be good. We could go with a blind end condition, but then we're still doing math. So up to surface. And if this changes, I want this to change automatically. I don't want to have to go through 2 features, 10 features to update each one. All right, so since I put that on the wrong corner, I'll right click, edit the sketch. We're going to break the coincident in the upper left and reapply it on the lower, well, that'd be the lower left on the lower right of the part. Okay, everything updates, gives us the geometry. (4-9). All right, so we have some symmetry. 30, 20, and that would give us the 80, thickness of 10. No, it's off of the offset. That isometric's kind of flip-flopping on me a little bit. So 20 on the height, 10 on the back. Looks like about 10 on the side, maybe 20 on the width, but okay, there's the 20. And then the standoff. All right. Okay, so from the front plane, we're going to do symmetry. So center line, vertical. Notice for construction is already checked. And infinite length is just easier. We don't ever run out of center line to establish our symmetry. Okay, so up and over. Window pick from right to left, crossing the center line gets picked as well. Mirror those entities. Start picking our geometry. 10, 20, and I guess we'll just go with the math. 10, 20, 40, and another 10 would be 50, so we'll see what that looks like. Okay, and then choice-wise, let's go mid-plane. And it's a depth of 60. So we open up the sketch. Our two blocks are the same size. All right, so the hole cutout and the through is the same. So we can go with symmetry again. Oops, let's go with center line. And mirror entities. All right, so height is 20. 10 off of the top. Width of 15. And 10 off of the edge. Okay, so one of these is going to be a boss, one will be a cut extrude. All right, so default is to pick both. In this case, I'm going to have to activate the selected contours and contour region, make sure I select my region, and then it can be a through all. Picking that sketch, let's see if I were to just grab the extrude base. No, I have to grab the sketch. All right, so the sketch is going to allow it to be shared. We're back into the selected contours and regions. We'll go ahead and clear out sketch 2. Pick up my next piece of geometry, and its height is 25 on the boss. All right, so kind of looks like the drawing, so we'll stay with that. And we're to P4-10. All right, fly in and take a look at 12, or 11 and 12. All right, so looks like an offset. Actually, it looks like it's all the way around. So 5 millimeters all the way around. One notch out. And 8 millimeters in offset. So a couple different ways that we could approach that. Main thing is that we get our geometry in place first. So where are we at? Millimeters. And we'll go top plane. And there is a little bit of a step back there, otherwise I would probably go with the rectangle. So over, back, down, and through. 15 millimeters on the leg, 40 millimeters on the horizontal, 10 millimeters on the upper, and 30 degrees on the angle. Oh, grab the midpoint, so let's escape back out of those. Try not to get the midpoint. There we go, 30 degrees. Now the 5 millimeters all the way around. Let's go ahead and select the chain. Out of the sketch. 5 millimeters. We're going to select the chain and reverse the direction to the interior, and that will give us the offset. All right, so this becomes an extrude. It's going to show me as if it was open, but if I go into the selected contours again, I can pick the perimeter. That will close everything in, and our overall height will be 30. All right, sharing that sketch then, I want to do an extrude cut, And we're going to offset the lower plane 8 millimeters to get the base, reverse the direction, and then I'm going to offset from surface on the top, also 8 millimeters. Okay, so that shows me the material that it will remove. And I'm going to make sure to go into the sketch, or into the selected contours, and grab the interior sketch. And one last thing is to flip the side to cut. Alright, so kind of see it over here as an arrow. It's going to remove to the outside. Alright, and that gives me the step. Sketch on top. So looking for symmetry, 15 millimeters, 20 millimeters. Select midpoint. And notice that that one went to defined, a driven dimension, but it verifies my geometry. Let's go into the hidden lines, and we'll just pick up a coincident so that it matches that edge, and then the feature is an extrude cut up to next. Okay, we'll save that. P4-11. Fly back in for 4-12. Oh, jumping away. Alright, so angle, face, vertical, another angle, little step. Alright, so no real place that jumps out at me. It is in inches, so front plane, sketch. Let's get our basic geometry in. Up, over, back, down at an angle. Pick up our inference lines, all the little yellow lines starting to pop up. And when we get to the angles and some of this other geometry, then it gets a little more greater chance that we will have some inferred relations that we didn't really want to end up with. All right, so 30 degrees in this case is off of the vertical. All right, so if I was putting it on the interior, I'd have to go to the adjacent angle of 60 degrees to make that work. But we do have the endpoint and the line, which will give us the four-headed arrow. And once I pick the direction of the arrow, that will let me put in as if I created a center line or as if I created that geometry. Let's see, overall height is 1.25, so dimensioning between the two lines. Okay, that was a little bigger than I anticipated. And 0.25 at the end. And an overall of 2.38. So horizontal back to the point. Okay, 0.25, 0.25, 30. All right, looks pretty good. Extrude. And let's go with the midplane again, mainly because of that top angle. And we're 1.5 inches on the thickness. All right, so that top angle piece here is going to be an advantage to open up a sketch on the front plane. We'll draw our triangle in. And 0.25, 0.75, and then the extrude is a midplane of 0.5. Okay, and that gives us our geometry. All right, P4-12.